picture the first hangover in history. Now picture it happening before humans could even read. When did our ancestors first get drunk? Long before beer pong existed. You'd think humans invented alcohol. You'd be wrong. The real answer involves fruit flies, drunk elephants, and a gene that's 10 million years old. Alcohol is older than agriculture, older than pottery, maybe older than us. So today we're tracing the world's oldest hobby back to its very first sip. Spoiler, nobody planned this. It started like most great ideas completely by accident. Let's go back, way back. 10 million years to be exact, to a tree somewhere in ancient Africa. Ripe fruit falls. It sits in the heat. And it starts to rot. Rotting fruit isn't just gross. It's basically nature's brewery. Wild yeast eats the sugar in the fruit and produces alcohol as a byproduct. This happens with 0 humans involved, 0 recipes, 0 TikTok tutorials. Our ancient primate ancestors smelled this fermenting fruit and thought, dinner. Turns out, the ones who could digest a little alcohol got more calories. Scientists call this the Drunken Monkey Hypothesis. Yes, that is the real name. About 10 million years ago, a gene called ADH4 mutated in our ancestors. That mutation made them 40 times better at breaking down alcohol. 40 times. Basically, evolution accidentally built us a tiny in-house bar. Apes who could handle fermented fruit survived better and passed on the trait. So technically, liking a drink is in your DNA. Blame your great-great-great-grandpa. And we're not the only ones who never lost the taste. Elephants in Africa have been caught getting wobbly on fermented marula fruit. Birds in Sweden have shown up tipsy on fermented berries too. So before there were bars, there were just very confused fruit trees. This means the love of alcohol predates humans, language, and even fire. We didn't invent the buzz, we just figured out how to bottle it, okay? So when did humans actually start making alcohol on purpose? Here's the annoying part. Ancient beer doesn't exactly survive 13,000 years. No bottles, no labels, no 5-star Yelp reviews from the Stone Age. So archaeologists had to become detectives, hunting for chemical fingerprints instead. They look inside ancient pots for residue, dried leftovers from the last pour. These leftovers contain calcium oxalate, basically the chemical signature of beer. Find that residue, and you've basically found a 10,000-year-old receipt. Of course, this method has limits. No drink, no residue, no proof. So the actual first sip in human history, we will probably never know. What we do have are the oldest sites where the evidence survived. And the current record holder is older than the wheel. Older than writing. Older than cities. Older than farming itself. Which is a problem, because we always assumed farming came first. Plot twist. Let's go to the cave, where this whole theory got turned upside down. Welcome to Reykjavik Cave in modern-day Israel about 13,000 years ago. This was home to the Natufians, hunter-gatherers, who lived here before farming existed. Inside the cave, archaeologists found stone mortars carved straight into the bedrock. These weren't for grinding flour. Residue testing told a very different story. Traces of wheat and barley were found, fermented, inside the stone basins. In other words, this was a 13,000-year-old beer brewing station. And it wasn't in someone's kitchen, it was found right next to graves. Researchers think this beer was brewed specifically for funeral feasts. Picture a Stone Age wake, except instead of casseroles, everyone brought beer. This single discovery rewrote a major theory about human history. For decades, experts assumed farming came first, then bread, then maybe beer. Rakefet Cave suggested it might have happened in the opposite order. Some researchers now think the desire for beer may have helped push humans toward farming grain. It's a controversial idea. Not every historian agrees, but it's a fun one. Either way, this cave proves one thing: humans love to drink early. But Rakefet wasn't the only ancient party happening on Earth. Let's fly to Jiahu, a village in ancient China, around 9,000 years ago. Archaeologists found broken pottery jars here and decided to test what was inside. The chemical traces revealed something that sounds more like a cocktail recipe. Rice, honey, and hawthorn fruit, all fermented together in the same jar. Some samples even showed traces of grapes mixed into the brew. This is the oldest chemically confirmed alcoholic drink found anywhere on Earth. Not the oldest guess. Not the oldest theory. The oldest proven recipe. The man behind this discovery, archaeochemist Patrick McGovern, even recreated the recipe. A real brewery later sold it. They called it Chateau Jiahu. Not joking. So technically, you can buy a 9,000-year-old drink at certain stores today. Jiahu wasn't just about drinking, though. It's also famous for something else. Archaeologists found some of the world's oldest playable flutes at the same site. Which means 9,000 years ago, Jiahu basically had music and drinks. In other words, humanity's first verified party scene. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, a different drink was brewing. Let's head west, to the mountains between Europe and Asia. In the Caucasus Mountains, around 6000 BCE, people were doing something new: wine. This region, modern-day Georgia, has grape residue in pots that old. Many historians consider this the birthplace of wine as we know it. Next door in Armenia, archaeologists found an actual ancient winery, around 4100 BCE. It had a wine press, fermentation vats, and even storage jars. A full setup. Basically a Bronze Age winery, 6,000 years before wine tasting menus. No sommeliers yet. Just very enthusiastic grape stomping. From wine in the mountains, let's head south. To the river valleys of Mesopotamia. In Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, the Sumerians took beer extremely seriously. So seriously they wrote a hymn about it, an actual song to a beer goddess. Her name was Ninkasi, and the hymn doubled as a beer recipe. Historians literally used the lyrics to recreate 4,000-year-old beer in modern labs. Sumerians drank beer through long straws, often straight from a shared communal pot. This wasn't a fancy choice. It was practical. The beer was thick, with floating grain bits. Beer here wasn't just a drink, it was used as currency and even as wages. Which brings us to a place where that habit became practically an institution. In ancient Egypt, beer wasn't a treat, it was basically a paycheck. The workers who built the pyramids were paid partly in bread and beer daily. We're talking several litres a day, per person, officially, on the job. Imagine your office handing out beer instead of a salary. Egyptian beer was thick, nutritious, almost more like a meal than a drink. It shows up in tomb paintings, temple offerings, even medical prescriptions. Doctors prescribed beer mixed with herbs for everything from headaches to upset stomachs. From Egypt's pyramids, let's hop across an entire ocean. In the Andes Mountains of South America, people brewed chicha, a corn-based beer. Traditionally, the corn was chewed first to help start the fermentation process. Yes, that means saliva enzymes helped kickstart some ancient alcoholic beverages. Meanwhile, in Mesoamerica, people fermented the agave plant into a drink called pulque. Pulque was considered sacred, reserved for priests, elders, and special ceremonies. So almost everywhere humans settled, they independently figured out how to ferment something. So why did this happen again and again in places with no contact at all? Part of it is just chemistry. Fruit and grain ferment naturally, everywhere. But humans didn't just stumble into it, they built rituals around it. Alcohol shows up at funerals, weddings, harvests, and religious ceremonies constantly. One theory says sharing a drink became an ancient trust exercise between people. If you both let your guard down together, you proved you weren't a threat. This may have helped strangers, and even strangers' tribes, build trust faster. Which brings us back to that controversial idea: beer before bread. Some researchers argue the desire to brew beer pushed early humans to farm grain. Growing wild grain for food is hard work. Growing it for beer, apparently worth it. It's a fun theory, it's also impossible to fully prove. Science is messy like that. One myth we should clear up: alcohol wasn't really safer than water. Most ancient people drank plenty of plain water just fine. That part's overstated. What fermented drinks did offer was calories, nutrients, and a reliably good mood. In a world without antibiotics, a mood boost and extra nutrition mattered a lot. So between ritual, trust, nutrition, and plain old pleasure, alcohol earned its place. Fast forward past the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Romans, the medieval monks. Monks, by the way, were some of history's most dedicated beer engineers. Eventually, clay jars became glass bottles. Stone mortars became steel breweries. Today, alcohol is a global industry worth well over $1 trillion. From a mouldy piece of fruit on a forest floor to billboard ads at the Super Bowl. Every beer, wine, or cocktail menu today traces back to that same yeast trick. We've added flavors, branding, and fancy glassware. The chemistry hasn't changed much. Honestly, ancient Sumerians would probably recognize a modern keg party instantly. They might just be confused by the music and the plastic cups. 10,000 years later, the party never really stopped. So when did ancient humans start drinking? Long before they were technically human. It started in rotting fruit, kept going in caves, and never really slowed down. Every culture on Earth independently discovered fermentation, with zero coordination between them. That makes alcohol one of humanity's oldest shared inventions and oldest shared rituals. Some call it humanity's oldest biotechnology. Yeast doing the hard work since before history began. So next time you raise a glass, you're repeating a 10,000-year-old habit. You're not just having a drink. You're joining a very, very long line. Cheers to that.